Welcome to the Enlightrepreneurs podcast. I am Justin Minott. I'm here with my business partner, Dave Gold. Dave, say hi.
Hi, and I'm upstaged by the beautiful young lady on your lap, as always.
Oh, yes. And this is my real business partner, I should say. Magnolia is here with me. She's 3 years old, but already taken over the business quite a bit.
And I think right now she has the majority of the voting stock. Right?
Oh, she definitely has a lot of voting rights around here, voting stock. Yeah. Tu veux dire allô? No? All right. And today we have DeShawn Brown and Tanner Hallman from Coworks. Really excited about the work that you're doing. I actually won't get too deep into it. I want you to introduce what you're doing. Before we do that, though, what's your story? How did you two end up connecting? Let's start with Tanner.
Oh, man. So DeShawn and I actually go back quite a bit. We started out at the same job when we graduated from college. It was a company called Credit Suisse in the Triangle here. And DeShawn was a couple years ahead of me, so I ended up shadowing him, and we got talking. And then DeShawn eventually left Credit Suisse to start his own company that preceded Coworks. And so he pulled me into that, and we ended up running that together for a while. And then we sort of progressed into the Coworks realm. But yeah, so I mean, just a couple. I basically followed DeShawn as he started companies. Did the hard work. I just jumped on and got going. But yeah.
Well played. That's beautiful. And DeShawn, how did this come about for you?
Yeah, good question. So yeah, for me, I've always kind of tried to. I've always been interested in trying to build things, and I think that's one of the reasons me and Tanner get along so well. Is he's definitely a builder, a tinkerer, and coming out of school, I had studied computer science, and but I've always sort of had this sort of dichotomy of like, I grew up doing like theater and more artsy stuff, and then I went to school for like a super technical thing, but I've been trying to sort of blend those two worlds, and really entrepreneurship was kind of that magic pill for me, where I found that you could do both. You could solve really complicated problems, but you could also use creativity. And so really, and then the other sort of thing that I realized was that I was much more interested in building teams to go tackle problems, as opposed to just holding up by myself and trying to build some stuff out. And so just been on a constant journey to try to figure that out, and fortunately crossed paths with Tanner in kind of the middle of a couple of those, and we were able to get Coworks off the ground. And so I guess with Coworks specifically, we could talk about how that kind of came about, or we can save that.
No, we want to hear about your business, but I'm fascinated because Justin and I have had similar experiences. With our backgrounds are really varied, which we won't get into here. But the idea that somehow that entrepreneurship platform is almost like a glue. It's not so much a glue as much as a playground. And it seems like in that playground, you can bring all of these different parts of you together in a way that otherwise would seem, in conflict or hard to reconcile. So anyway, you guys, I mean, it's a beautiful thing to see. And also it's obvious you guys have good chemistry as well.
Appreciate that. We
yeah, for sure.
We spent a lot of time together, so.
That's great. So now, what is Coworks? Give us the breakdown.
Tanner, you want to take it this time?
Yeah, happy to. So Coworks is a co-working and flexible management software. We built a platform for managers of these flexible, independently owned sort of workspaces that are a culmination of a lot of maybe smaller companies or satellite offices for bigger ones. But there was a problem that we recognized early on, that the workspace and the way people work was shifting, and there wasn't a good tool set or a set of tools that basically bring all the operations in one place. And so we recognized people were using spreadsheets and Gmail and Google Calendar and sort of a myriad of tools that they were trying to solve a lot of problems. So we recognized that the technology basically wasn't catching up with the change in the workspace. So we spent a while doing a lot of interviews and eventually decided that it was worth diving headfirst into what DeShawn and I believe is how the workspace is changing. And we really believe that the tools really should complement the way that these spaces are being run. And it's kind of crazy. Every day we talk to a new type of co-working space. And so trying to grab all those different workspaces and workflows into one single centrified tool is basically the mission. So it's been an exciting one.
Varied in terms of how they approach everything too.
Yeah, each space operates very, very differently, but they all have sort of the same goal in mind, which is to create a community of like-minded individuals who can basically help each other and stimulate each other's businesses. So it's kind of this happy ecosystem that they're all shooting for.
So
Yeah,
we definitely have some stuff to work on together.
I want to stop the tape and start talking business with them. But so one thing is, we're finding this out because we work with a lot of co-working spaces and their cultures are so different. You know, every one of them really has this very, very different culture. But one of the things that you're doing, you're helping them create that culture. You're actually providing them some of the back end so that they can create the culture that they want. And I'm wondering how does the culture you guys have together, how is that kind of manifested in your software and what you're trying to create in these other co-working spaces?
Yeah, that's a good question. And I think cultures is definitely something that I've always believed is super important. Just being in the entrepreneur and startup world, like, you know, if you're trying to build something and go up against people that have more money than you, more people than you, more, you know, time, whatever, really the only thing you have is your culture and, you know, the mission behind what you're trying to do and, you know, the environment and the way that you work. And so I think for me, one of the reasons why I was really passionate about co-working is that when I was at university, I went to NC State University, we had this space and they called it the garage. And when I was there, it was just, it was basically, we were the guinea pigs. And so it was just this tiny little suite on the edge of campus. Nobody knew about it. I used to take my friends there and they thought I was like some cool secret, like, you know, campus ambassador or something, because you had to have key card access. They're like, whoa, what is this place? Are we allowed in here? And it was like this cool little space with like a little 3D printer and some cool little offices. And it was like a student entrepreneur center. And so they were really just kind of, NC State at the time was trying to test out this, you know, this theory of what if we put a bunch of entrepreneurs together in a room, give them a bunch of cool toys to play with, and let's see what happens. And right. It was really interesting. And I just kind of just unintentionally created my first company, which is called Lithios. And that energy really left an impact on me. And so then I went and saw the other side of the coin, which is where I met Tanner, and we both worked in like one of the most corporate, it was an investment bank, right? You can't really get more corporate than that. Like, I mean, dress code, cubicle, the whole 9 yards. So I saw the other side of workspace, and I just kept thinking about, like, actually, while I was there, like in the evenings, I would go back to the garage. Like I would just like, me and a couple of my friends who still had access, we would just kind of sneak in there and just work on our idea. Yeah, it was wild. And so when we kind of got out into the real world and I had to find my own office and start building my own culture, that experience left a lasting impact. And I think when we started doubling down on, we joined a co-working space, we started, you know, being more flexible with like hours and, you know, got rid of the dress code and just focused more on like being a team and a community and a family, what I think what I found was everything improved, right? We were able to work faster, we worked harder, we worked longer, we were more passionate. So I think that's what really clicked for me, like, okay, this is just how people should work. And these co-working spaces to us sort of represented that experience that I had at the garage of like, this is a collaborative style, community focused, we call it space as a service, where, you know, you're going in and, you know, the space is designed for you to serve you, right? And connect you with what you need, the amenities, coffee, Wi-Fi, the people. And so I think that's really, especially as the world evolves to a more digital sort of world, I think the way that we think about the physical space has to be more purposeful. And that's kind of what we think. We think co-working is kind of the answer to that. So all that kind of wraps into culture, yeah.
So DeShawn, speak to the leaders who are now going back to more traditional settings, right? So we've had this coronavirus go on. People are coming back to these more traditional settings. What are some of the principles that you have learned that could be applied? So maybe not the investment bankers in the cubicles or whatever, that might be a little too far gone, but some people in between who are now really having to consider their space as a service, the well-being of their people as a real resource for their company, not just human resource, but actually humans like the resource there. Yeah, what kind of principles have you learned in your journey, and what have you seen from all these other co-working spaces? And Tanner, chip in some of these too, that could be applied in all types of settings, or should be applied in all types of settings.
Yeah, I'll start. Tanner, you back me up here. And it's a really good question, Justin. And I think that, so one of the things that I've sort of landed on is, especially now with the virus, everyone's kind of forced to be remote, right? And, you know, there was a lot of, I think, holdouts of people who just on principle didn't believe in the concept of remote work. They just, no real stats or data behind it, but just principle, like if I can't see you working, then you are not working. And as a manager, I actually empathize with that, right? Like I have employees and, you know, I get anxiety when, you know, I can't see what they're doing and they go dark for hours at a time. And I'm like, am I paying you to work, or are you watching Netflix, right? But I think ultimately it just comes back to trust, right? If you don't trust that person, you know, if they're not getting the, like, you know, the work should speak for itself. And so, but back to this, so Corona, I think, has kind of ripped that Band-Aid though, of like forcing people to be remote. And as we kind of go back to a normal world, I think the main thing that I've like landed on and that we try to tell people is that work from home, which is the buzzword right now, to me is and always has been. I don't really think people want to work in their actual house, right? And there's a lot of reasons for that. Not everyone's houses are equipped with like an extra office, spare bedroom, high-speed internet, you know, whatever. I think what managers and what employers should understand is like work from home is just a metaphor for flexible work. And it just means I don't have to go to some place just because of some principle, right? So if you start with that, I think then you can start to really understand how to leverage co-working space as a service and like really take some of the good principles of this remote work into your back into your physical space. And that's when you start to treat the space differently, as like, well, how can I set it up to where it's not just built because they have to be here, but because they want to be here? Or like, what are the things that me as an employer, what can I do to actually encourage a more productive, you know, work style than them being in a Starbucks or in their home or somewhere else, right? You start to actually want to up your game so that your employees want to be there. And for me, the simplest way is to just focus on the culture itself, because then you could be in a box and people still want to come to your space. But I think it just kind of flips that mentality of like, why, like what your workspace is about and like how you approach working with a team. And so it really starts with that trust and the culture. And I think that's the two big things that people are going to have to face in these new times. Yeah. Tanner, I don't know if you want to.
Yeah.
That.
I mean, you hit the nail on the head for me as well. I mean, I was going to say a lot of the same stuff. So, sort of building on what DeShawn's saying, co-working is really beautiful because it's not only a landing spot for you as maybe someone who is really far from your HQ office, but it's also really great because it's this ecosystem of other businesses essentially who have people and employees that you may have not previously had the chance to meet. And what we think is really cool about that is we've sort of coined this term called creative collisions, which is you just basically running in to somebody else and sparking conversation that leads to some sort of business growth or opportunity that you wouldn't have had previously. And that's really invaluable. You can't put a currency around that. I mean, that's just something that is sort of a byproduct of co-working spaces, but it is certainly a really beautiful one. And you wouldn't get that if you go to the same cubicle every day and you see the same 10 people on the way there. So that's really where we think co-working spaces are going to fill that void for basically this new kind of remote workforce. I mean, Twitter and Facebook and all these companies are announcing, full permanent, remote work. Come back when you're comfortable.
Right.
And I do think what DeShawn's saying, right? Not everyone wants to work in their rooms. Like, I've been in here for 2 months and I'm very excited to get back to the co-working space that we're a part of. And
yeah,
so,
it is.
I think
Well, it almost sounds like you're talking about co-working as I don't even know what that word is, but like as a mindset, as a lifestyle, more than the space itself or where you are. It's more of this approach to work, like flex work, co-work, and whatever. I think it's brilliant. Dave, what are your thoughts?
Yeah, I know. What I was thinking is it's redefining what work is. That's it. That's what's interesting. And I noticed because, Justin and I, we love what we do. And you guys love what you do. And so the delineation between work and play, unless you have your manager and you got to fill out a timesheet, and you got to say, I did this. You take the deliverables out of the picture and just look at what you're actually spending your time doing that you're passionate about. That delineation really starts to break down. And I know yesterday I wasn't having much fun, and my wife said, "Is it because you didn't get to play with Justin all day because he was busy finding a new place to live?" I said, yeah, I didn't have a playmate.
It's really true.
It's just interesting because I think that this is part of the discussion. Is like, what does work mean? And I think it gets into also just a little kind of back to our core values of Enlightrepreneurs is when you're doing what you love, that idea of work just starts to transform into something totally different. And so it's just great for us to find other people that not only love what they're doing, they're helping other people redefine what that could look like to spend their time making money doing something they really love. And speaking of that, we're going to get to something very tangible now because one of the
my favorite part.
We warned you guys this was coming, but not by much. Is what we like to do is just figure out what the biggest challenge is, and let's put our 4 great minds into getting some headway to seeing the opportunity and solving it. So this is our favorite part of HQ Corner. So lay it on us. I know everything's going great. You guys are doing fantastic, but if you had to make a challenge up for your company, just make one up.
Well, I mean, we are a startup, so we have lots of challenges for sure. Man, I mean, it depends on the day for sure. But I would say for me, our biggest challenge is we're at this really great part of company life cycle where, we've got a product out and we've got customers using it, and we've signed people not even just in our, immediate vicinity, but also across the world. We'd signed a co-working space in Romania, a co-working space in South Africa, in Canada. And, we're really starting to see the global reach of what we do. And, but we're a small team. Tanner and I are shouldering most of the load. We've got a couple extra people that are helping us with, dev and sales, but very small, lean team. So I think the biggest thing on my mind is kind of we're in that no man's land where we've got enough customers and noise and problems to keep us, inordinately busy, but not enough critical mass of customers to just like fund all of that through organic revenue. So we're kind of in that middle tier where we're trying to figure out how do we get over the hump. I guess crossing the chasm is another way to describe it. So really, I guess growth, and especially in these times when no one wants to get bombarded with sales emails and calls. Fundraising is a bit tricky, and we're kind of going down that road as well. But yeah, how can we just do more with less to just sort of expand our vision and our product and our reach? So I guess sales growth, anything in that kind of vicinity, I think that's our biggest challenge. And it could be marketing, it could be like actual picking up the phone calls, but just like ways to do more with less, I guess, like creative ways to grow is really what we're trying to think about.
All right, Justin, I'll let you go first. Justin and I, at this point, we're crawling over each other.
Oh, this is so much fun.
We so many ideas. But
this is so much fun. So some of I like to start with some curiosities. If you grew organically, do you have a sense of how much more revenue you would need, or what that could look like to take on more customers without adding more workload? Do you have a sense of what that actual number is? Because I think that might be, if we don't know what the goal is, it's really hard to hit. So what does that look like for you guys?
Yeah, I think there is an inflection point. There's a sweet spot for sure. We're kind of on the wrong end of it right now, but we've got like about 30 different co-working communities, and some of them have multiple locations. Like HQ has 4, about to have 5 locations, so several different locations around the country and world. And I think that there's a spot probably around like I think 100 spaces or so, where we start to where we've got enough kind of revenue to support and automate a lot of the things that we're doing manually now. So yeah, there is a number, there is a sweet spot. I think right now it's kind of like we're having to do a lot of stuff manually just because we don't have the resources to go build out the automation for it, type of deal. So you get stuck in this back and forth.
Well, and that's a little tricky. So I ran a coffee importing company in Canada for a few years. I ran a coffee importing company in Canada for a few years, and one of the issues that we had was that every new cafe client that we would add, if we took on a wholesale client, the margins were so skinny, but it would be more hand-holding for us and more. So like by the time we actually did the math, we were actually kind of losing money on every cafe that we added in terms of human hours that it took to actually service those properly and make sure that they were good. So one of the issues there was actually the automation and figuring out, are there small things that we can automate now in terms of the hand-holding process or what they need that would take us a lot of hours up front, but then we'd be done. And we did automate, and it was a lot of getting them the storytelling tools so that they could actually tell the story about the coffee and that type of stuff to make sure they were equipped for it. And it was a small automation that didn't cost us a lot, that actually allowed us to scale, because otherwise we were just taking on more and more hours for every client we added, and that was an issue. So can you think of any smaller automations that would take adding more customers and make that less painful?
Yeah, that's actually, I was going to say, DeShawn, that's a part that I've been focused on, a lot recently, which is first you got to figure out how to do it. You got to figure out how the process works. You got to figure out what to automate, and then after you do that, then you can actually go into the automation phase. So you don't want to jump in and automate something that isn't working. So that's kind of the focus over the past maybe 6 to 8 months internally is what can we figure out how to automate, and what should be automated. And so a lot of our focus has been building features for our customers, but also part of that is internal tools and automation pipelines that allow us to basically make our effort and our work go a little bit further. And I think that's what you're talking about, Justin, is that last little that sauce on top of what your daily operations are that allow you to basically take on more without feeling overwhelmed. So
yeah,
That's
and I'm gonna
exactly it.
play off that from a different angle, and just we can come back to that because I heard two things that confirm something, and that one, you know, I've been a trial lawyer. We founded a sales and marketing company that we sold. So I mean, I know how to sell, and I know what a pain it is, and I know how important it is, and I know if you guys can sell, it's everything. But there's a different way you guys can go about it, I think. And I heard it earlier. You guys have a story, and your story is to me is as engrossing and as enticing and as marketable as your product. Or I don't know, you can put those two apart. Okay, it's the same thing. You guys, it's about culture. You know, you bracketed. You know, I'm telling your story. It's like, hey, I just try to get the widest possible spectrum I could get. I got the garage, which is just mayhem and anarchy and management by walking around. And then I went to Credit Suisse and I saw that, and I know how important culture is. And so one, we have our own internal culture, but we're helping you create the culture that you want to create. That's who we are. That's why we've come together. That's what our tool is, a manifestation. You know, it's an embodiment. It's a third dimensional embodiment of what's most important to us, which is culture. And what we're going to do is because of who we are and what we've built, we're going to help you create the culture. And all these co-workings, they know they're all about, you know, that they're all about culture. So you're in a cultural partnership. You guys are partners creating culture. And to me, that's where I would first of all start putting my attention in terms of that story, because that story one is more enticing. It's the sauce. You talk about the sauce, Tanner. It's your secret sauce. Okay. So part of that to me is like, wow, that is so cool. And plus, it's going to spread virally. You know, it's going to be so much easier to talk about yourself rather than doing an email drip marketing campaign. You know, you're really talking, and then you start thinking, what are the follow-up services I'm providing? What type of, you know, this is like Justin and I do. You know, we bring you guys bring us, just an example. I'm not, you know, hitching our wagon to your story or vice versa, but you bring in people to talk about this, talk about culture. How are we doing? How can our tool work to create that kind of culture? So I think that's just the kind of the biggest picture that I see that gets me most excited about how you guys can move quickly. Then the other thing, just very practically, is if you had more resources, where's the easiest revenue for you guys to get to? You know, what is not happening because you guys are spread so thin? That if you were more focused, where would you be getting the next trench of revenue? And, you know, I know that's a little bit that's just a really, really practical part. And the third thing I'll throw real quickly, and then I'll be quiet and let Justin come in, because I've stolen the stage like we do, because we get really excited about solving problems, is we went and hired interns. We engaged interns. I went to the universities, and we ended up with an intern who is now basically our business manager. You know, it's just she's come through you might have met Haley, you know, if you're part of anybody not part of our community knows her. And so there's just free resources. And right now, especially because it's virtual, people want to be able to do virtual internships because they do other internships. You guys got the connections in NC State. You know, think about you guys. You'd have been died to be able to work for a company, you know, put some time in to be able to work with a couple of cool guys like you. Go back to NC State, get some free resources, get some people in there. All right, I'm done preaching, Justin. All right,
and to echo that
great.
last piece especially, your company and your story is compelling enough that people would want to be a part of it. You are inviting people to be a part of this. And so, yes, all the way from interns chipping in some time, on a volunteer basis in the short term, all the way up to equipping co-working stations to share this with, or co-working spaces to share this with other co-working spaces. This is a story that people want to be a part of, and that's what you're inviting them into. And so that's all of my curiosities now is, all right, how do you scale in ways that invite people into this story without you having to do more work? So I'd be looking at, you know, is there a way that you can, through some referral system, have these co-working spaces reaching out to their other buddies, or anything that basically, like, now they're selling for you. You've created a structure, really, I mean, and then their price comes down, or whatever that is. This is just whatever spitballing, but their price comes down for every one that lands, but you've actually now equipped the people to be your sales team, right? And that's just one area. That's just sales, right? You can do that in marketing. You can do that, you know, in-house. You can do all of those things where you're just equipping the people with the tools so that they can do the work for you, and then they're happy to because they're incentivized properly.
Right.
So anyway, DeShawn, what are you thinking? I see you chomping at the bit over there.
Yeah, no, I mean, I think that that's all really great. A lot of that stuff resonates for sure. Trying to find a way to like get our customers to sell for us and to spread our story. And I think, Dave, what you said as well, the selling that culture is huge. And that's something that definitely hits home with me too, is that like, I always say like, we're much more than a software company. Like today, that is our product, that is what we sell. But if we stay in that mindset, then, we're never going to grow. Like when I think about Coworks and what do I want people to think about when they hear that, I want them to think brand. I want them to think future of work. I want them to think, co-working, flexible work. And then I want the product itself, the software, to be one of the things that they know that we use as a tool to deliver on the actual point of the company.
Yes,
And
that is
I
it. You're
fundamentally
selling a
believe
way of life, DeShawn.
Yeah.
You're selling a way of life. That is so, it's like the tiny house people, like what, it's not about necessarily living in a tiny house. It's sustainability. It's practicality. It's low footprint. It's right. Simplicity. You're selling the intangibles through the tangible product, right? And the more you stay focused on that, yeah, keep going. I like that.
Yeah. I mean, I think that's definitely sort of the goal. And I think for me, one of the hard parts is like, how do you, and maybe this is just a question for you guys, is like, it's a little more straightforward to say, okay, here's a tool, here's what it does, here's what it costs, you should buy it. But like, how do you take a step back and sell that story? Because right now, like, it is just natural, right? It's just true. It's just what we really believe in. But it's hard to take that and put it on a web page or in an email. So I'm trying to figure out how can we really articulate that in a way where somebody could read it in an ad or see it on our site or see it in an email and then click and connect and connect those dots, right? So connecting the dots, I think, is really the challenging piece. I'd be curious how you guys have seen other people do that, or how you approach that.
I will, and I know. I mean, this is like a larger conversation. We're gonna, after we press unrecord or disrecord. Because to me, Justin and I are the product. Okay.
Right.
That's who we are. That's us. That's who we are. And then everything manifests through the fact, and then we're the product. And I'm not doing this to brag about us, but only to say this is true for you. This is just a mirror reflecting onto you guys. We see you guys. And so they see that we love what we do. We care about each other. We're trying to change the world. We're trying to change people. We care deeply about people. And what our offerings are just a manifestation of our value. So if you think about your offering as being the manifestation of your value, okay, which is you guys, okay, you really care. You love culture. You love making people, you love making a workspace where people, it's more than working. So for me, it just starts with a shift of seeing you guys as the product. And I know it's really hard when you got to sell stuff and they have to go, you're selling to the person who's selling inside the company. I realize that. So you can light up, you can light up the person you're talking to and they fall in love with you, but then they got to go upstream and they don't have you there. So, I mean, you don't do this in a vacuum, but I think there's a way of turning this on its head. I mean, one, I would just be able to get sustainable. So when you're shifting a little bit here, you can still get the revenue coming in, that what you're doing now that's working, you keep working. But I think it's shifting it on its head and starting to tell your guys' story. And then we have so many people in our world who do that, as well as us.
Yeah.
And we figure out how do we get that story out to sell it in that way. Because I think you guys are the ambassadors. And the last thing I'll say on this is that you guys are authentic. When you're doing what you love, you're authentic. It's a good part. I mean, I don't know how the cause of the arrows go, but I just found you do what you love, authentic. Your authenticity is your greatest sales piece. It really is. Yeah. And then people will justify the authenticity by saying, oh, this will do this, 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 and save me this much money and make me this much money, right? So you have to backfill it with with the dollars and cents that allows them to take it up the chain to make the sale. But still, it's going to be you guys and your authenticity that's actually going to make the sale.
And to use a couple real world examples here of people who have done a good job of not selling their product, but selling the lifestyle or the brand behind it, Apple has never sold a phone as a product. Not once. They sell simplicity, they sell ease, they sell elegance, right? That this is this elegant, sleek, this. They don't go feature first. The features are because we value simplicity and we want to make your life easier. Here's this feature, right? Because whatever, but they've always started with that. Nike, any of their interesting advertisements, you leave feeling inspired, like you're ready to go and do something. And at the end, here's the swoosh. And you go and buy the shoes. They didn't ask you to buy the shoes once. They showed people sweating with determination and killing it or whatever that is, or some of their inspiring stuff about racial justice or whatever. Like, they're selling the idea, the culture, and then the product is the byproduct, like Dave was saying. It's the byproduct of their values. But they've really led with lifestyle first. And those are just some really good, practical, real world examples. So I would be curious for you guys, is there a way that you can position yourselves at the center of the conversation around the evolving workspace, right? And what that actually looks like and what to be considered, and helping companies, even companies that don't need your product, think about practical ways like we just talked about in this episode. Here are 5 practical tips to where you can bring the Coworks essence into your existing structure, right? That you don't even need our app right now. You just, like, these are some principles. These are like trust and ways to build trust with your people, whatever. That's really the it. And then the software is now the how that works for some people. I even think as you journey down this road, you're going to create new products and new offerings that you never thought of that allow you to serve in these ways, because you're leading lifestyle first. How do we help people rethink work? How do we help people rethink culture? How do we help people? All right, now this software is one tool. You might add tools in the future to actually serve that need, like we have in our business. Our whole thing is like, how the heck do we help big-hearted entrepreneurs win, right? And so everything we do is like, okay, we need a podcast now. That's to serve that, not just because we need a freaking podcast, you know? It always serves that. So I'd be curious about where your company goes with that at the heart of it.
Me too. I'm excited to see, though.
I've got it. Hey, Justin and I take turns of being a grown-up, and I guess it's my turn today because we have another podcast coming up in a few minutes.
Oh, yeah.
So, okay, that's great. So first of all, I really enjoyed, we don't have this conversation with everyone because you could get this blank look on their face, like, what the hell are you talking about? But you don't have that blank look. It's more like, holy shit, where do we start? So, one, I just think you got the right person. You guys, you're charismatic. You got the right personality, the right mentality. It's just you. This is just you being you. So we will, after we hit the unrecord button here, we will.
No. Stop record. You don't want to unrecord because then it's gone. That happened before. I am the CTO arm of our.
The reason why a 68-year-old gets a 32-year-old partner. I think look, he knows how to operate this. But anyway, we'll do that. But before we do go, what do you want to tell? Pitch your stuff. How people find you. Who do you want? What's your call to action to people if they're in a co-working space? Do they want the co-working space to call you? This is your platform to sell your stuff. So tell us what you want to tell us.
Yeah, absolutely. Anyone who is currently operating a co-working space, a flexible workspace, thinking about it, works in one, and wants to have a better, time, or knows people, just feel free to reach out to us. Coworksapp.com. That's COWORKSAPP.com. Coworksapp.com. You can find us on Twitter, on LinkedIn, on Instagram at Coworks App. And one cool thing that we did just recently launch that is going really well is we actually just launched a new community. This kind of goes into that, selling that culture piece that we talked about. It's called Coworks Community, but it's an exclusive Slack community for community managers of co-working spaces. So all of our customers are there. They're brainstorming. They're talking about, how to survive in this, COVID world that we live in right now. So yeah, definitely feel free to reach out. You can also reach me, DeShawn at coworksapp.com. But yeah, we want to grow our community. We want to reach more people. We want to, just help as many people as we can.
Beautiful. So good. Thanks for making time, you two.
Yeah.
Yeah, thanks for having us. This has been awesome.
So we're gonna